there is no longer any pursuit. There's no longer any struggle. There's no longer any hunger. The person rests now. Their hunger is resting in peace. It's only the only reason we call that still alive is because there's the potential to resume that. That the hunger will. We know that the hunger will resume. But if a person would be finally never again hungry, we would say that it died, right? So every movement is ultimately working towards its own death, and it's the fulfillment of the life's mission, of the fulfillment of the mission, the fulfillment of the movement is the death. And in a sense, death is accomplishment, it's achievement, it's resolution, it's the final stroke. It means you've attained perfection.
That's probably why there is so much struggle, because we know so little about death. Maybe if we knew a little more, we wouldn't be struggling so much.
What is there to know about death?
And like, what is it? Nobody knows like what's in the next life.
What?
That's a fear of death.
What? Wait a
That's
second.
what I'm saying. That so many people fear
What is
death.
there to know about death?
I don't know. What is there to know?
Maybe there's nothing to know. Meaning, you realize that we're talking about. We're trying to talk about a taste in terms of color. When we talk about, we don't know what's in the next life, right? We exist in a certain dimension, and that dimension comes to its completion.
I had an experience. I knew someone who could not die. She suffered so much. She was afraid to die.
Yeah.
She was so afraid to die that she died a million times before she really died. She didn't resolve a lot of stuff in her life. She had lots of problems with people around her, people who loved her, children, family.
Right.
She just couldn't die. She just was afraid to die.
Right.
She couldn't let go. Let's put it this way. She wouldn't, like when you want to go to sleep, you have to let go, kind of thing. She wouldn't let go. She held on and was very unhappy. I interpreted that she didn't resolve what she had to resolve. So for a person like that, I think life, death was the solution. And how about all those sick people in the hospital all the time? I lost a sister and a niece to cancer within 6 weeks. I was sad. I said Shiva and everything, but it was a relief for me to see them not suffering. I came to that conclusion. I said, you know what? They couldn't bear it. I couldn't bear it. We couldn't bear it. It was just beyond us.
Yeah.
So much suffering. And that was a relief. I had a father who was 99 and a half, and when he died, it was a big celebration of life. I didn't shed a tear. I didn't have to. I did everything I could when he was alive. And no regrets. It was sad, and it was a celebration of life. It was not sad. He died between these sister and niece, which within 2 months, 3 generations. Died 24, 62, and 99 and a half. So it could be a relief.
So what about people who get cut off before their time, so to speak? Right. So when I talk about this kind of final stroke, reaching perfection and completion and at peace, I think that in life too, there's this idea that perfection is the enemy of completion. That if you're a perfectionist, you're always trying to perfect upon your endeavor, let's say, and at a certain point, the person, like you said, has to let go, right? So sometimes a person lets go, and sometimes a person gets stopped. This is certainly my personal life. That's how it is often. I'll be tinkering and tinkering and tinkering, and my wife will say, Yossi, that's in it. It's enough. Stop. And I'll go against myself and stop. But then after I do, I feel okay, right? I feel relieved in a way. So it isn't to say that. So from the perspective of the endeavor, from the perspective of the person who's involved in what they're doing, it can feel like we're cut off in the middle while we're in the middle of doing something. But at the same time, when it's finally and conclusively stopped or interrupted, it is that peace comes.
Like
Right.
Shabbat Friday.
Right, exactly.
Before dawn, before light
Sunset,
candle,
yeah.
You know, you have to stop. That's it. Finished.
Yeah.
Haven't you saying, strive to be like God, but accept being human?
Beautiful.
What?
Strive to be like God, but accept being human.
Yeah. So in a way, that's an excellent example.
It's
We
a
know that
Friday,
experience,
yeah,
right? We know that
Friday,
experience. On
right
Friday
before
afternoon,
Shabbat.
you really,
That's
if
it,
you're
you
stuck
have to
in
stop.
middle, when you're stuck in middle, and the time comes and you stop, and you may feel that you didn't finish, but at the same time, because it's conclusively stopped, and you know that there's nothing left to be able to do, peace comes. So, in a sense, so again, is all endeavor futile? Because it was we got into this because you said that for some people death is a peace.
Yes.
And I'm saying that death is always peace, because anytime you can stop struggling, and all of life is a struggle, all of life is ultimately the pursuit of something. Anytime you can when you don't have to pursue anything anymore, that is by definition peace, right? Even when it comes in middle, even when the struggle is interrupted against your will, it's still peace, because not being able to do anything is peace. Meaning, there's a difference between not being able to do anything and there being nothing left to do, right? If you're not able to do anything, it means the thing is right in front of you, and you're being held back from being able to do it. The truth is, it's only conceptual anyways, because if you can't do it, you can't do it. If you're not able to do anything, then there is nothing to do. But the experience of having the sense that there's still something I want to do is frustrating when you realize that when all opportunity of anything to be done is removed, then and one surrenders to that completely, then there's peace, right? Okay.
What do you think about people who have said they've gotten messages from people who passed? I'm not talking about a seance and all that.
Yeah, I heard all about that.
So what do you think about
I don't know. I don't know that I don't know that there's anything I could think about it.
If it's a good message, good.
No, meaning what intelligent thing could I possibly say about that? I don't know. Like, I have no idea what to say about that.
Okay.
It's one of those things that you put it in back of a burner, and you say it's about me. I can't comprehend what it is.
No, it's like, it's again, it's I don't know.
Well, sometimes
It's something that we have the human condition can't have anything to say about something that arises from beyond the human condition. You know what I mean? It's like what is the significance of being visited by an alien? Being visited by an alien is not something that a terrestrial being visited by an extraterrestrial is nothing that a terrestrial being could have anything to say about. It happens beyond. If it happens beyond our sphere. It happens beyond our. It doesn't, put it this way, it doesn't say anything about what life on Earth is. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at. So you asked me, people get signs from those who have passed on. That doesn't say anything about human life.
Well, yes, it would. It would be that there was life after death.
It says clearly there's life after death, but there's not life after death. And I'll explain to you what I mean. Like I said before, it's like talking about a color in terms of taste, right? It's not possible to have life as we know it after death, because life as we know it is of the body, is within and of the body, right? It's not to say that it's limited or defined by the body, right? But it is inseparable from the body. At the same time, obviously, not everything is about the body, right? Obviously, there's more to life than the body, but nonetheless, it becomes something different, and becomes something so different than all of the terms by which we experience life as we know it are no longer available. And that's why I use the example of talking about a taste in terms of touch, talking about a taste in terms of color. They're completely different. So, but I actually had it does resonate with me, this question, because I had a conversation recently with I don't know if I should say this publicly. It's a little weird, but I had a conversation recently with a friend who is well into her 90s, and is moving away. Moving away. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to see her again. And so I said my goodbyes. And, we're talking, she's well into her 90s, and it's no secret. She said, I'll be back, but I won't be able to talk to you then. So I said, send me a sign. I'd like to know that I'd like to know that it's not going to be all over. And I'll know that you're still out there, that you're, because I'm going to miss her. And so it's a little weird. It was a little weird to say that. But so I guess, Betty, what I'm saying is that when we talk about what do I think about getting visited from beyond this life, yeah, it's a nice idea. It's a nice idea, isn't it?
Book on miracles. You read that little stories. It's a whole book on all these people that communicate with other people.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful idea, isn't it? I think that's the symbolism. So going to our Parsha, we're talking about the death. Abraham is losing his wife. His wife died, and he wants to bury her. And it's really, there are two ways of dealing with death. One is burial, and the other is cremation. Right? And Abraham very specifically wants to bury her, but there's more. There's more to. Then there is burial and burial. So there's burying someone anywhere, and then there's burying them in a special place. So what does that mean? When we cremate, when we burn the body, what we're really doing is embracing the helplessness, but not surrendering. We're taking the body and making it disappear. Taking the body and making it disappear. Whereas burying is kind of hiding it away, hiding the body away, right? The symbolism of, so one kind of common argument against cremation is that somebody who's cremated won't be resurrected, which I don't know if that's an intelligent thing to say, because I mean, in the end, the body disintegrates anyways, right?
What about people who were cremated
What about people who are
it's not
cremated?
their
Yeah, of
idea,
course, of
it's
course,
not
of
their
course,
will
of
to
course.
be
So
cremated.
I'm not. That's a that. I'm sorry, but that's an
Not
emotional
opinion.
argument. You're saying, how can you say something that hurts so much to hear? How can you say something that hurts so much to hear? How could something so painful be true? Is what you're saying, right?
I just lost the thread here.
Yeah, I did.
You said how you said people say that we shouldn't cremate because you won't be resurrected. So Betty says, what about all those people who were cremated by the Nazis, essentially? That doesn't that I don't see that as a valid argument
Against what?
against the claim that cremation that people who are cremated won't be resurrected.
Uh-huh.
Because what you're essentially saying is, how could something so painful be true? Right? Are you saying that all these people, like, are you saying that all these people, so what if I said I am saying that all those people who are cremated won't be resurrected? Let's say I was saying, again, I know that people who are losing the thread might hear me saying something wrong. I'm not saying something wrong. I'm saying, if somebody says, are you saying that people who are cremated are not going to be buried? And that means that all the people who are cremated by the Nazis are not going to be resurrected? So what if I was saying that they're not going to be resurrected? How would you know that I'm wrong? Because it doesn't feel good for me to say that? I'm sorry. Like, because it feels it feels painful, it's uncomfortable. Like what if I said that all the people who were like, what if I said that, in a way it's kind of yeah, so they were murdered also, like their life was cut off against their will. It's not like they committed suicide and they're still dead even though they didn't want to die. So maybe it's true.
But it was husband's will, so we must have some plan there. We don't know what that plan is.
So okay, fine. Like now you're going into the what is the meaning of all of this? And I'm just saying I don't think that it's intelligent to say that it doesn't make sense to me to say that people who are cremated won't be resurrected, and I don't have any texts, any Jewish traditional texts to refer to on this, but it's because I mean the body disintegrates anyways. It's not and then there's talk about the loose bone, sort of this bone from which the entire body can be rebuilt. So and that couldn't be burned either. So now I'm getting to my point, which is that by burying the person, it's not so much a statement about, it's not so much a physical thing like that we need to preserve the body for the resurrection, and that if we burn the body, then it won't be resurrected because God forbid the body isn't there anymore. It's a statement about our belief about what life means and what the end of life means, and it's a statement about whether we believe that there is significance to a life that ends.
Respect.
So let's go to a moment about the loose bone, okay? The loose bone. This is this Kabbalistic idea, this Midrashic idea
Is that bone here?
that there's a bone that's supposedly at the base of the neck,
Yeah.
at the base of the head or the tip of the spine,
Mhm.
that it can never be destroyed, and from which the entire body can be rebuilt, right? So I'm not going to go into any kind of pseudoscience and talk about, how we could possibly clone a human being from one DNA sample, right? I'm not going to talk about all that because I think that's not the point. The point isn't what is the tangible manifestation of this idea. The point is, what does it mean? Why does it matter? And of course, even if it can't be tangibly manifest at this point in time in a scientific way that we could rebuild an actual body, there is still other manifestations of the same idea. What I mean to say is that we're saying that even though the body ends, even though death is an end, it doesn't mean that there is no more value even in a thing that is over. So to say there are two ways of living. Okay, I'm coming to my point. There are two ways of living. We can define ourselves by what we do, or we can define ourselves by who we are. So what we do ends definitively when we die. You can no longer do anything. But who we are doesn't end when we die, because we are an idea. We are something that's not quantifiable. It's hard to quantify what we are. And so while when we die, we no longer can do anything, we still are. And the fact that we still are is because we're remembered. So the burning of the body suggests that it's kind of saying that now that this body is no longer useful, we should make it disappear. Whereas the burial of the body says this body is sacred. This body represents a person, an identity. And in a sense, the identity of the person lives on, even though they're no longer useful, which is why we still have a name. We put a stone over the body, because we're saying the identity of this person still matters, still exists.
You still have some real estate also.
Yes, right.
In the world.
And then this brings me to the idea of burying in a special place, which is the story of our Parsha, which is to say that there is a specific real estate to which this person belongs. It should be consistent with their heritage. It should be consistent with their identity. It should be consistent with where they come from and where we want their descendants to go, which is also part of our Parsha, the marriage of Isaac, which is talking about the fact that Sarah was buried in a specific place is a guide, is a determinant of how Yitzchak would then, how Isaac would go on to live. Because even though she's gone, she still matters. Meaning not she's gone. Even though she can't do anything anymore, her identity still exists. So what's the loose bone? The loose bone, the base of the spine, the tip of the spine rather, symbolizes the meeting point between the head and the body. Right? It's the bridge between the head and the body. So the head is a useless part of the body, entirely useless, but the identity is in the head. Or you can't really, right? Like, of course, somebody's gonna say, yeah, you can do things with your head, whatever. But like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, the head of all the body parts, the head is the least useful.
If a person is dead.
No, at all. Like, what could you do with your head? Very little. You can't write a letter with your head. You can't build a house with your head. So that's what I'm saying. Your identity is in your head, but the usefulness is not in the head. The usefulness is in the body. And so there's a magical bridge between the identity of a person and the usefulness of a person. And that's represented by the highest, it's the last bone of the head and the first bone of the spine.
What do they call that bone?
Lose.
Lose?
L-U-Z.
LED?
Z.
Lose.
Okay.
I don't know if you know it, but Sfaradim on Saturday night, after they say they have the lot, they kill the light in the wine.
Yeah.
We put a finger in the wine, we put it on our eyes, And
Yeah, in the back of the neck, right?
The back of the neck. That I
Yes,
didn't hear.
yes.
That we do.
So
I don't
I'll just
know why
talk
they
about.
do it on
I'll
the
talk.
eye.
I'll talk about that for a moment. So I'm glad you brought that up. So
I
the
asked
custom
my
of the
mom.
Havdalah. I'll tell you why we do it. The custom of why we so at Havdalah, which is the ending service of Shabbos, it's customary to make Havdalah the ending service division between Shabbos and the week, with over a glass of wine, as every benediction is done, and with a candle, with a torch, which is symbolic of in industry, symbolic of industry, which is
Industry and light.
right, which is it's industry that creates, it's beneficial industry, right? It's the idea that man um, can now make something, create something, right? We when we end the ceremony, we pour the wine, we put out the candle by pouring the wine out on the candle, and then it's customary to dip the pinkies into the wine and to put it on the eyes. And the reason for that is because the reason we pour the wine out, reason we put the candle out with the wine is because such a candle is a sacred candle. It symbolizes the sanctity of human industry, of positive human industry. It signifies the holy efficacy of the human being as we re-enter the work week, that we say that our ability to create is something God-given and holy, and therefore it shouldn't just be blown out. It should be, when it ends, it should end with something beautiful, with something honorable. It shouldn't be killed by a blunt instrument. It should be killed by something equally sacred, which is the wine.
So why
Right.
the eyes?
So then on the other hand, the wine is
Sacred.
desecrated by having put out a candle, and so we want to show the wine some love,
That's nice.
and so we give it a butterfly kiss. We put the wine on our eyes, which is an ancient sign of love. Holding something by our face, holding something by our eyes, is a sign of love. As a matter of fact, when we kiss our tzitzis, we kiss the tzitzit, we put it by the eye and we also kiss it. It's many things. We put the sitter by our face and then kiss it. It's a thing that people do as
In
a sign
some
of love.
languages they have my eye, my love, my
Right.
eye.
Aini,
You are my
aini,
eye.
right.
You are the ball of my eye.
Yeah, the apple of my eye. Right. So
Yeah.
it's a way of, and with wine particularly, putting it by our eye is more symbolic than kissing it, because kissing it could be a selfish act, meaning I'm drinking it, right? But putting it by our eye is to show it's just a sign of great respect for the wine. Now there's a paradox here, right? On the one hand, the wine puts out the candle, so the candle is honored by having been put out by wine, but the wine is desecrated by having put something out. And so the human, which is ultimately the one who represents the industry represented by the candle, is showing honor to the wine, and has the ability to re-elevate the wine and to say that this is not your identity. You're also something. Now the wine and the candle are two opposite symbols. The candle is industry, and the wine is escape. Escape.
Escape.
And this
Isn't
this
it holiness?
Huh?
Wine?
Yes, of course.
Is the holy-
Now, escape means uselessness, right? Holiness is ultimately useless. Something that's holy shouldn't be used. It shouldn't be used for a mundane purpose, right? And Shabbos and the week represents that same duality, where Shabbos is helplessness, uselessness, but in the holiest and best possible way. We don't do anything. We don't create anything. We don't build anything on Shabbos. And so Shabbos is represented by wine, and the week is represented by the fire.
Okay.
The Shabbos candles are, first of all, the Shabbos candles are lit before Shabbos, but the Shabbos candles are a single wick, and the Havdalah candle is a torch, right? Which is the idea what's better? Like, if we want to honor the Shabbos, shouldn't we honor it with a torch? But the answer is that the Shabbos candle, while it does have an element of utility, but there's something to be said about a romantic candle versus a torch. A torch, you don't care how it looks. You don't care of the effect. You want the maximum light because you want the maximum utility, right? Whereas the candle is it says something just by its being there. It's not about what it does, it's about that it's there. It's identity, right? Right? Which represents peace, right? Because it's not, more is not better with a candle, with a beautiful candle. Yeah.
Less is more.
Right? So the Havdalah is the luzbon, because the Havdalah is the moment of transfer between identity and utility, between uselessness and industry. Right? And the luzbon is the same bridge, is between identity and utility. The mind, the identity, and the tool, right? You can never destroy a luzbon. So the luzbon, as much as it's a spiritual, so the identity doesn't need a bone, right? The body meaning the body, in a sense, can exist without identity, right? But at the same time, the body can be destroyed. Eventually, once you stop using it, it becomes meaningless and it disintegrates. So the loose bone represents a bridge, like a magical transfer point, which is kind of like, if you think about the Havdalah, the back and forth. It's not parv. It's more than that. If you think about the Havdalah, there's a lot of back and forth action happening, right, between the wine and the candle and the eyes and the back of the neck. Also, I talked about you would touch the wine to our eyes, and then in some traditions that we also touch the wine to the back of our neck, which is the symbolism of this moment of going from the Shabbos with wine and lighting a candle and then putting out the candle with wine and then putting the wine on our eyes and on the back of our neck. There's this transfer, this dialogue, this liminal space between Shabbos and weekday, between identity and utility, between no need to do anything to full action, to sort of the only relevance is what you can accomplish, right? And the loose bone represents, on the one hand, a physical thing, but on the other hand, one that's defined by identity, so that it can't be destroyed. And this idea that we have an identity that has a physical manifestation is a profoundly hopeful statement about the human condition, because it says that there is a transfer point, there's a meeting point between identity and utility. A point at which means that it has the benefits of both. It means that just like identity can't be destroyed, can't be divided, can't be crushed, and can't be limited, on the one hand, on the other hand, it also has a very physical, real, and tangible and quantifiable manifestation. Right? It means that our identity can come to life in real and meaningful ways. And so even though we die, that doesn't really matter. Even though we're not useful anymore, burying someone says that you may not be useful, but you still exist. You still matter, and you still have a place. You still have a tangible manifestation. And that place, that idea, that tangible manifestation of the indivisible idea that is you, will inform the future. And in Jewish teaching, will ultimately be restored. But no buts. What that will look like, I'm not going to speculate about what that's going to look like, because again, that means I don't know. Like it could be something that I can't describe. Why does it have to be something I can describe? Like, why? It's fine. It's fine. Let's just say that it is. Meaning, we say that sleep is 1/60th of death, right? Which is to say that, so to use a
Only 1/60th of that?
Only 1/60th. So what is the significance of
What does that
1/60th?
mean?
There is a significance.
What is the significance of 1 and 60?
Also, they say if you visit the sick,
You restore
1/60th
1/60th of their illness.
Yeah,
You
so
make them
you
1/60th.
take
Yeah.
away the illness by 1/60th. So
Yes.
there is a significance. And then
What is the number
1/60th
60?
Also, we have in Kashrut
Yes.
somewhere.
Talk to me about kashrut 160.
Kashrut 1/60th. If something a grain or a halab and basal, something
Yes.
1/60th, you don't waste the whole pot and throw
Yes.
it away. You just ignore it.
So I'll say like this. Yes, you're 100% right. If a drop of, and specifically a drop of milk falls into a pot of,
Chicken soup.
well, let's even use beef
It happened
broth.
to me. I'll give you an
Yeah, if
example.
it's less than
My
1/60th.
baby, son threw his bottle in the kitchen, and it went through, and probably a drop went into the chicken soup.
Right.
So we had a problem.
Right. So it's kosher because the mamashut, the substance of the milk is not in existence. The only thing that I'm concerned about is their taste of milk in the soup. And so with less than 160, there won't be any taste. Right, which means it's batel. The milk is considered non-existent. It doesn't exist. There is no,
Because you can taste it.
because it has no
It's
tangible
a mamash.
manifestation.
You can see it.
However, if there is a piece of meat that falls into a pot of milk, if there's a physical manifestation, even if it's small, if you can identify that piece, you have to remove it because there is a tangible manifestation of that thing.
But can you drink that milk?
Once you've removed the thing,
You can.
let's say like this. There's a question about there's a gzerat chachamim. It's prohibited to
cold.
remove. It will be prohibited to remove the meat, and then to stir like. It would be like in theory, yes. If you would remove the meat, you could drink the milk. Like theoretically, you could. Yeah, if it was less, if the volume of the piece is less than 1/60th of the entire pot, then conceivably you could. There are some other calculations to bring to bear, but in principle, yes, you could drink that milk soup, that dairy soup. Now, the significance of 1/60th is that it doesn't matter anymore. Right? So
It's batel.
it's batel, right? It's completely nullified. So, and to use a halachic term, if matzah minat mino v'chozer v'neyor, so if you had a pot of meat and a drop of milk fell in, and then you poured, and it was nullified, and then you poured more in. Let's say like this: I'll give another example, a better example. If you cooked dairy in a pot, and then later on you cooked something else in that pot, and then a drop of dairy comes in, the dairy that goes in reawakens the nullified dairy that's absorbed into the walls of the pot. This is halakhic legalese. But the language, I want to focus on the language. Old, right.
Yeah.
But I want to focus on the halachic language. Matzah min et mino v'chozer v'neor. It wakes up. It wakes up that which was nullified in 1/60th. So now talk about the symbolism of the 1/60th being death, being 1/60th of sleep and reawakening. So the reason why death is 1/60th. The reason why sleep is 1/60th of death, to be more precise, is because you're dead, but you can reawaken. So it's not fully batel. It is a full 1/60th. You have to be 161, right? It has to be 1/60th is really 1 of 59, right? So it means it's not fully batel yet. So you have death, but a death that can be reawakened, and a person who is ill and is visited by someone who they give them 1/60th of their energy, sort of in a way that they reinvigorate them, but not in a way that removes their illness. So sleep. What was the point? Sleep. This is the idea of the resurrection. The idea of resurrection, right? So the idea of resurrection is that in a sense, we have this idea that death can be transcended, right? In a way that we can kind of talk about waking up those who sleep in the dirt, right? Chayei Sara. So this is.
I want to point out that the minute is divided into 60 seconds.
Yeah.
Right.
The angle is divided into 60 minutes.
The angle.
The angle, the degree.
Or degrees.
Is divided into, I think, 60 minutes.
Yeah.
And the Babylonians used 60 as their base, the way we use 10.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it may have something to do with the number of days of the year being 365, related to 60 somehow. So they thought 60 is kind of basic.
How do you get from 365 to 360?
Yeah, I don't know. I think you estimate, or you
round it off.
Estimation.
You're not exact yet.
And Babylonians didn't know the mathematics that well as we do it today.
They
So
knew
it
a
was
lot
a
of good mathematics, it seems.
Oh, they did?
Babylonians, yeah.
So this is so that's a fascinating idea, the
Very
geometry of spirituality.
yes.
Yeah. So again, and which is what I want to say is that it's kind of like, when I talked before about the idea of does something physically manifest, right? Just because I didn't want to talk about pseudoscience of resurrection and the loose bone, because it's a truism. If it's a truism, it'll appear in many places, not just in the final place. Just like death, although death is a truism that life ends, that dynamic manifests itself in many places in our life. We encounter our helplessness and uselessness, the limits of our ability, and the only value remaining being our identity. We encounter that very often in life, right? That's death. Death says you can't do anything anymore, but you still matter. That's Jewish death anyway. Death and burial. You can't do anything anymore, but you still matter, right? Which is to say, you may be helpless and useless, but you still matter. And even though I'm going to die, it still matters that I should live, right? That's all manifestations of the same idea. Even though I may succumb to my addiction, it's still, even though I'm helpless before my addiction, it still matters that I still matter. And it still matters that I temporarily hold off my addiction, even though I'm ultimately helpless before it.
People always say, well, after the person passed away, maybe they'll pray for you. How does that go? You say in the next world, maybe they'll be so they're still of value.
I don't know what that means. Again, that's talking about for me to describe. Of course, I've heard it, but we have to recognize that we're describing a taste in terms of color.
Okay, so if someone says, I hope your parent have an aliyah,
right,
we can still speak about it. Is it tangible? No. Is it spiritual? Probably.
What does that mean, though?
What does it mean? It means that we are all here and we did something good today. We made a mitzvah, we had a seudah, whatever it is, or we gave money for charity, for the spirit of your parent, whoever the parent was, whether I knew it or not, that parent or not.
So we're still busy.
What?
We're still busy in the next world, like getting a better seat.
Yeah, so I hesitate to talk about things like.
Yeah, that's.
I want to have a little bit of humility here when we use words that are not appropriate. Like we have to recognize that we're talking in terms that are not compatible with subject matter, and I think it requires a little bit of.
Sorry to have to go. This is fascinating.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you.
I wanted to tell you that in the courts, when they read the wills and things, they say what was the spirit of what that person meant.
Yeah.
What was the spirit of the idea? Because sometimes it's not clear.
Right.
And then the family comes together and they say, what was the spirit? Did he mean if he wanted to give charity? Did he mean to hospital, or the spirit of the person prefer, let's say, Gmilut Chasadim or Tzedakah Lanim?
So I'll put it in those terms.
Yeah.
When we talk about the spirit, so let's talk in terms of the Torah for a minute, okay? You talk about the spirit of the intention. Um, um, Now, P.S. I just want to say that these two factors, these two principles, one of identity and the other of utility, are in Kabbalistic symbolism referred to as the masculine energy and the feminine energy. Right? The masculine energy is utility, and the feminine energy is identity. Right? So so when it comes
The
to Torah,
energy is a female.
Identity is feminine and utility is masculine.
Okay.
Right? Doing things is male,
Yes.
and being someone is female. Right? So in Torah shebichtav is masculine. Al tito is Shema b'ni musar avicha. Titosh Torah timecha. Al titosh Torah timecha is Torah shebal peh. The oral teaching is the feminine aspect of Torah, and the written Torah is the masculine aspect of Torah, because the masculine aspect of Torah says, just learn the words. Like the meaning of what is intended by the mitzvahs is not recorded in the written Torah. It says, study this, learn it. The explanation of what the deeper meaning is in the oral tradition. Or to give another example, if I say do something, right? What do you want? Or in different words, how does this serve your identity? Why do you want me to do this? Means, in different words, how does this action, this masculine action, serve your feminine identity? And so when we talk about the spirit, we're talking about the identity, the desire. And in a sense, the spirit is a loose bone. The ratzon is a loose bone, because it's the meeting point of action and identity. It's where what I want you to do. It's a 3-part sentence. There's 3 subjects. There's I, do, and in between want. It's the connection between I and do is want.
I understood it differently. I understood that the mind is the masculine and the heart is the feminine.
Yeah. The mind. So it depends what you mean by mind and what you mean by heart, because heart is also, like, the heart doesn't actually have feelings,
No.
right?
I mean, women think more with their heart than reasoning. In general.
So let's talk about what reasoning means and what feelings means. Reasoning is plans,
okay,
right? Which is focused on action,
right?
And feelings is experience, which is focused on identity.
Experience and
is the experience of the identity.
Okay.
How does this
It's more
feel to
spiritual.
me? How does
It's
this
more
feel to me?
spiritual.
So
I would say
it's this, meaning it's, when you say spiritual, you mean it is more connected to the inner self.
yes.
Right? Which is identity based.
Mhm. Okay.
So the spirit of the
It
action.
It works also.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very interesting. Makes us food for the thought.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I just came from yoga.
So many.
I heard a joke yesterday.
Yeah.
They cleaned the joke. Ladies,
Yeah.
would you like to share?
What is it?
They say that the Chinese, they have male and female. They believe also in 2 opposites.
The yin and the yang.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
yin and the yang. So they say the mother-in-law, the mother-in-law on the female side is the yoga, and the karate
Mother-in-law.
on the other side.
Is the other mother-in-law.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's funny.
Still with the mother-in-law jokes. I had a good mother-in-law.
I was so surprised
Nice.
when I heard
But you
that.
know that lady I know who's Korean, and she said a lot of